Hi, today I'm going to demonstrate how you can use the Postman tool for exploring and testing the Couchbase Sync Gateway REST API. The Couchbase Sync Gateway is a core component of the Couchbase mobile stack and is responsible for data routing and synchronization between the web mobile clients and Couchbase Server. You can learn all about the Sync Gateway and the Couchbase mobile stack on our developer portal at developer.couchbase.com. All links referenced in this video are posted in the resources section. If you haven't done so already, please download Postman. You can get that from getpostman.com. I will be using the free version for my demonstration. The Postman collection for the Sync Gateway can be downloaded from Couchbase Labs' GitHub repo. So if you go to github.com/couchbaselabs, you can search for the Postman repo. The first one that pops up is the collection for the Sync Gateway. Go ahead and clone this repo. I have done that already. As you can see, it consists of the Postman collection and corresponding environment file. So there is a collection corresponding to the admin API, one that corresponds to the public API. There is a corresponding environment file. There's also a sample sync gateway config file. We will see how we leverage that in a bit. So the first thing you do is launch Postman. We begin by importing the two collections that we just cloned. The reason you see this is because I had previously imported this collection. So when you're doing it the first time, you shouldn't see any message pop up. So we've just imported the two collections, one for the admin interface and one for the public interface. Let's go ahead and import the environment file. I'm going to go ahead and set the environment to be the Sync Gateway environment that we just cloned. Let's explore the collections a bit. There are two sets of API, the public and the admin API. As you can see, for each of the APIs, there's a description, there's a request, and there's a response. So if you see there is the admin URL, it actually corresponds to an environment variable. The environment variables are defined in the Sync Gateway environment file. So you can do a quick look on the environment. There's a whole bunch of environment variables that are defined. Probably the two most important ones are the admin URL and the public URL. This corresponds to the Sync Gateway endpoint for the public and the admin interface. So right now it points to some random server, as you can see. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually mock our request. So we don't really have a Sync Gateway running on our machine. So we can quickly see that. Go here. As you know, on a local machine, the Sync Gateway runs by default on port 4985. That's the admin port, and 4984 corresponds to the public port. So there's nothing running right now. There's no Sync Gateway running, but I'd still like to explore and test things out. This is particularly useful when you're just trying to explore the area, the API, get a feel for it, or you're in early stages of development, or you are just trying out in an environment where you don't have the Sync Gateway configured as yet. So the first thing we'll do is to mock our server. So for that, you can do this. Go ahead, look for mocks, and it's as easy as a click of a button and you have just mocked this collection. So what we'll do is copy this mock URL and edit the environment variable admin URL and set it to the mock server that we just created. Okay. Now we can do something similar for the public interface as well. Go to mock, add a mock, mock this collection, copy this, and now we will set the public URL right here. Sorry. So this is the mock URL for the public collection. Update. So let's start doing some tests. I'm going to run the, as you know, I don't have the Sync Gateway running as yet, but I can still go ahead and actually run this request, and this is run against our mock server that we just created. We see we have a sample response coming back as well. So where did this response come from? Well, if you look over here, there's the examples folder, right? The examples folder includes some sample responses which have been pre-generated for you. So if we look at this folder, there's one corresponding to the 200 OK response. And that's what you see over here. This is very convenient if you are just trying to implement your client and you don't have a Sync Gateway running, or you don't want to actually execute the request to get the response. You can do this. Look at the responses, the sample responses. The other thing which you can see, notice over here, is that there is a test results tab, and it says that the test has passed. So if you look at the test, it's pretty straightforward. For most part, all the requests in the collections, both the admin and the public collection, they include tests for each of the requests. Most of the tests are pretty straightforward. They do a simple status check. You can extend this test that to suit your needs to do more extensive validation of the responses that comes back. So in this particular case, I'm doing some simple check of the status code, and I am also verifying that the database name, that this particular property exists um, in the response, JSON response. Get my Sync Gateway going. You can download the Sync Gateway from the Couchbase downloads page. You can go to mobile, right? And go to Sync Gateway, and you can download this for the platform of your choice. And you can also find this in relevant Docker containers. Actually, you can find Docker on Docker Hub. You can find so you can look for the Sync Gateway Couchbase and pull the Sync Gateway Docker container, and you can launch it. And I have already downloaded the Sync Gateway Docker image, and I am going to just launch it. Now, before we do that, let's go back to the folder where we downloaded, or rather cloned, the repo, right? Notice that in addition to the Postman collections, there's also a config file. Now, this Sync Gateway config file is pretty straightforward. It is used to launch, it launches the Sync Gateway in Walrus mode. So I don't really have a Couchbase server going, but if you want to persist the data, you can also launch a Couchbase server and make sure that the sync gateway is configured to talk to that Couchbase server bucket. Over here, it's pretty straightforward. I have a bucket, demo DB. I have the server is the Walrus server. I have a couple of users configured. Um, this the config parameters that I have over here correspond to the one that I have in my environment variable. So if you see, I have a database that is demo DB, and let's go back to our Postman collection and a quick look at our environment variables. And if you scroll down and look for, oh, well, right here, the first one, DB, that's demo DB, right? And I also have the username and password, admin and password, and that is what I have in my default file as well, right? Username is admin and then password. Of course, I could have used demo password as well, but then I have my admin given access to all the channels. So if you want to actually test against a sync gateway, and you just want to use the default values which are provided in the uh, environment file that comes with the collection, then you can launch your sync gateway with this config file. And so the first thing I am going to actually do is launch my sync gateway. Images running. So the first thing that I'm going to do is start up my sync gateway. And if you want to know what I'm doing over here, right, this is where all the magic happens, right? I'm running the Docker container. That's sync gateway dash demo. That's the name, and I am launching it with the sync gateway config file. And this sync gateway config file is actually the one that I downloaded from the GitHub repo. I just moved it, I copied it over to this folder. Okay, so and I have just launched it with this enterprise version. It's a pre-release version of the sync gateway, which is in beta 2.0, and I have just launched that. And you are free to use Docker, or you can use the manual installation, whatever works for you. So let's make sure that we actually have the sync gateway running. So as you can see over here, I do have the Couchbase Sync Gateway version 2.0 running. Now that I have the Couchbase Sync Gateway running on my local host, there are a couple of things that I need to do to get my collection talking to my Sync Gateway, right? As you can see over here, right, both my admin portal and let's see over here the document, right? See, it points to our mock server. So the first thing we have to do is to update both our admin URL and the public URL to point to our local host. So here it's going to be localhost colon 4985. That's the admin. And okay, now again, I'm going to leave the rest of the environment variables to the default values. But as I mentioned, if you were launching your sync gateway with a different config file, other than the one that's provided in the sample, be sure to update the environment variables with the right DB name, the right username, password, um, and the doc ID that you want to use, the default doc ID, and so on, and whatever other parameters that you want to customize. Okay, so I'm going to update this, and you can see the first thing, it's updated, and let's make sure that it runs. So I am just going to go ahead and so right here. So this is the version, and the tests have passed. It's a very simple test. I'm making sure that I get a status code of 200. Couple of things which are interesting to note. One is request chaining. So when you create a document using a put request, as you are aware, a new revision for the document is created and it's associated with the revision ID. Now, this revision ID is returned in the response. So let's quickly do a test, right? Now, this doc ID, I've given a name test doc. I'm going to run this. As you can see, it created a new document, and this is the revision ID associated with the document. As you are aware, when you have to subsequently do any operation on the document, let's say you want to update or you want to delete the document, you have to provide this revision ID in the URL. So one thing you could do is copy this over right into your update request right here and then run it. But that's not very convenient. So instead, almost all our requests were applicable. If you look at the tests, it dynamically updates or creates an environment variable based on the response. So in this particular case, it extracts the revision from the response and sets the rev ID. It sets the rev ID as the rev environment variable. So as you can see over here. So this is very convenient because now, as you can see, the revision ID of the document is one something. Let's do a quick look, and you should see the revision ID of the document that was just created right here. Okay. And so if you go to the update and you look at the revision ID, it's automatically updated. So you don't have to manually copy over the response from the previous request. Now you can run this. You see its revision ID is 2. The test is similar. You've updated the revision ID. And if you look at the revision ID over here, it is updated as well. Okay. So this kind of request chaining is very convenient for testing purposes. A couple other things to note is the code, right? If you look at the code tab over here, it generates the client-side request code for a variety of languages, the commonly used languages. So if I'm going to use, you can use curl, of course, um, or if you are using Objective-C, right? It's a little verbose, but there you go. Right, Dave, you got your sample client-side code snippet. One other point that I'd like to mention over here is that you can also view documentation. Now, to be very clear, the documentation on our developer.couchbase.com is the source of truth, and that's what has to be referenced. But if you want to generate documentation based on the collection, you can do that. For this, you have to have your Postman collection in sync with your Postman account. So you can't do it when you're in offline mode. So if you notice that in sync over here, so you need to be synchronized with your online account. So I'm going to do a view in web, choose my account, go to collections. Right now this is all private. I'm not going to publish anything, but I can view documents. And in fact, you can also go ahead and specify the environment. And there you go. Right here, you have the full documentation and where applicable, because you notice the examples that I specified earlier, the collections come with predefined sample responses in the examples folder. And there are different versions, sometimes the error cases, and then you would see the success case. So it's pretty convenient when you're exploring the API to see what are the possible responses you can get. And yeah, so 404, and this is the corresponding 201. Cool. And that is all that I have. Thanks for watching, and happy API testing.